Good morning, everyone. I like memes, and well, this one is talking about masking, and we're going to be talking about masking at the beginning of this show. And it says, I have a serious question for the mask people. Do you plan on wearing a mask forever, or just until your masters say you can remove it? Right, like, I mean, what are the criteria? Why is there no mandatory sunset? Why isn't anybody talking about repealing a mask order when cases are going down? What's going on here? Here's death rates, and it says source British Columbia government, and there's a link. It says death by year in BC doesn't really look different, says Urian Armft. Sorry if I've got that wrong. He says, doesn't really look different this year from last year and the year before that. Explain to me again, where is the pandemic? Shouldn't there be more dead people for this to be a pandemic for which we shut down the economy? And here's the numbers. 2016 had total dead 20,941, 2017 22,832, 2018 22,571, 2019 22,482, and 2020 22,095. Good question. Good question. Here's Maxime Bernier, and he's interviewing Rocco Galati. And this is an interesting interview. I think you should watch the whole thing. Mr. Galati kind of not lays out his whole case, but lays out why he thinks he's got a strong case. Mr. Bernier asks some good questions. It's strong viewership, so you should check it out. I'll show you about a minute of it. Here we go.
One of our plaintiffs is a professor, PhD, Dr. Denis Rancourt, who's an expert in masking. He's a world expert in masking, and he says this is nuts. And he's come on board as a plaintiff in the action. He feels so strongly about this. So we have the expert evidence to say now the public health officers, it's interesting, are saying, okay, we know that masks do not stop airborne viruses, but we're trying to stop when you sneeze and you cough. And what we say to that is two things. First of all, transmitting the virus by coughing or sneezing wet droplets is very rare. Any virus is transmitted 99% by the air, and the masks don't stop that. That's what the science says. Second of all, if you're trying to stop wet droplets, well then have people wear the plastic visor. At least you can see their face, they can breathe normally, they can talk to you, and they can be understood. Why the mask covering half of the face? It's a very psychological, devastating way to enforce compliance and remind you psychologically who's in charge. That you're not in charge of your body. You're not in charge.
And we'll leave it there. So I think that's a good point. I think maybe the visor masks might be a good solution for the mandatory masking that I'm going to talk about here, or maybe schools. The big plastic shields that have the face or the head halo, and you can push it up and down, right? That might be a good thing to wear around schools if there's mandatory masking that you cannot get around, right? And because you can't be there to advocate for your child in a school necessarily, right? But if they're saying masks mandatory, and you say, all right, well, here it is, right? At least they're not having a bacteria-laden thing right on their face the whole day, right? Or whatever time period they have to be masked. At least they're not picking it up and putting it down and all of that other stuff as well, right? Like, anyway, maybe that just seems like a good solution to me because I haven't thought it all the way through yet. I watched this interview this morning and thought about the masks. So I haven't thought it all the way through yet. Maybe there's a big downfall to masks that I haven't thought of. But it seems to me that dehumanizing your child and sending them off on the bus, right, would be a bad idea, right? And if you could get around that by having a clear plastic face shield that everybody can clearly see your child's face, right, that doesn't dehumanize the child, right, and is able to allow the child to communicate properly with facial expressions and not hampered by their face being covered, right? Like, I don't think you can hear me as well when I cover my mouth, right? Sorry, that was a quick experiment, but anyway, not very scientific, but still. Regardless, when Rocco Galati is being attacked by Amir Atran, and Amir Atran is a professor of law and medicine at the University of Ottawa. He's a litigator, a scientist, a bicyclist, a husband, father, son, and personal account, not University of Ottawa or Echo Justice. Apparently, Echo Justice is part of his makeup too. He says, I think the Law Society needs to go do something about Mr. Galati spreading COVID disinformation. And this is in response to a tweet Mr. Galati sent. And he's saying, must repeal the must repeat the uncontroverted facts about mortality rate of COVID-19. It is, in Canada, a 99.976 survival rate, whereas the pandemic, which is defined by WHO as when 7% of those infected die, or CDC. That's defined by WHO or CDC. Oh, I got lots wrong in that one. Sorry, everyone. Anyway, when you're attacked like this by people like Mr. Atran, it seems to me you're over the target. It seems to me you're saying things that they just want you to stop saying. And don't stop saying it, please. And I hope that Mr. Galati does very well in his lawsuit. And I hope that we see a relief to this insane mandatory mask orders. I'll show you one. Well, there's a whole bunch of other mandatory mask stuff. One of the most important things is Westjet to remove unmasked passengers from flight and ban them for a year. Can you imagine, right? Westjet is taking tough new measures beginning next week against passengers who refuse to comply with federal masking rules on flights. The airline says it will go as far as booting passengers off flights who consistently refuse to wear a mask or face covering while on board. If the plane has not left the ground and somebody refuses to wear a mask, we will return to the gate, Westjet President and CEO Ed Sims said in an exclusive interview with CTV News. Just like enforcing compliance, right? Here's a post on a business. This was in my Twitter feed. It says, "This is a safe space for all. No mask? We won't ask. We are inclusive to all. If you're not wearing a mask, we know that you have a reasonable excuse. We know that your reason is a private matter. Thank you for supporting our business," right? So that's in stark contrast to WestJet and how they feel about masking, right? Here's the Globe and Mail, and they say nearly 9 in 10 Canadians say Canada has done well in the COVID-19 response. The study shows they can make a study say anything they want to say. Here is another one. CTV News is likely using the same study, and they say, unlike Americans, most Canadians pleased with government's handling of pandemic poll. This is just massaging your mind. Oh, other people like what they've done? Oh, they've destroyed our economy, and Sweden didn't have to destroy their economy, and they have exactly the same curve. Isn't that odd? Yeah, our government did a great job. Wonderful. No, it's not true. It's not true. Here's a quick dirty Twitter poll. Now, Twitter polls aren't weighted. Twitter polls weighted means made sure that the people are in different age categories above 18 or whatever. And Twitter polls, people can vote twice, so they're not scientific in the strictest sense. But they show kind of here's a quick temperature on people that this guy knows. Poll time, it says, are Canadians pleased with government handling of pandemic? Retweeting comment. You would think if 90% of people were happy, so said the two articles here, right? 9 in 10, most Canadians, okay, if most Canadians were happy, and this one says 9 in 10, nearly 9 in 10, what is that, 2? It's almost 9 in 10, right? It's not 9 in 10, but it's almost there, 2 of 10. I just don't think that would be true, and also have this poll result of 571 votes. And make no mistake, 571 votes isn't a big sampling, right? Canada's 37 million people big, population-wise, and so 500 is not even really, a good sample of a province, really, right? Unless you're talking PEI. But still, I don't know that there are 9 out of 10 people out there who are happy with the handling of the economy, with the handling of the jobs, with the handling of the curb. There are people who can't find people to work for them because the curb is just that much better. It would be detrimental for the people to come off the curb to go to work. They'd get less money. So why do that? Doesn't make any sense. Work hard and get less money. Yay, welcome to liberal Canada. Just stay at home, man. Stay at home. It's not safe. Right, sure. Here's an interesting article. WHO team probing origin of COVID-19. Well, I just want to talk really quickly about this mask. Hold on, before I move into the COVID or into the Wuhan stuff. I think that this is a huge overreach for WestJet to be banning people for a year and removing unmasked passengers. There are reasons people don't want to wear a mask, don't want to have the face covering. I don't know if the plastic shield would work. I wouldn't be surprised if shortly they come out with the mask must be surgical and must cover your nose and mouth and chin and the whole deal and all of that. I have a feeling they're going to get more specific. I think this is going to get worse before it gets better. That's what I think, and I think it's bad enough already. I think this is an unbelievable overreach for most people. And now at this point in Guelph, when the mask thing started. I stopped wearing masks. People were more militant about it a couple of weeks ago than they are now. Most people don't care now. Even shop people, like it used to be, shop people would remind you and stop you and say, "Oh, you have to wear a mask." Now they don't even bother, and that's probably good. That's good. A lot of people are complying though. I'm usually one of the only people. If it's not only me, then me and one other person. But people who work in the stores are all walking around with it around their nose. All of them. All of them have it broken at the nose or pulled down wrong, or it's always on wrong. It's so weird. Unless they're like, unless they're the face of the company, right? Like there's Walmart cashiers who've got it on right, but most of the time, if they're walking around stocking shelves or whatever, it's on wrong. From my experience. Okay, moving into WHO. WHO team probing origin of COVID-19 coronavirus avoids Wuhan, where first cases were detected. You don't want to go there. Wuhan? No, we'll just stay in Beijing. National Post is reporting. A team from the World Health Organization tasked with investigating the origins of coronavirus did not visit Wuhan, fueling concerns from Western governments over Beijing's commitment to identifying the source of the pandemic. A recently concluded 3-week trip to China by the 2-person WHO team did not entail a visit to Wuhan, a central Chinese city where the first cases of the novel coronavirus were detected in December 2019, the UN agency has confirmed. And if you guys haven't seen this is interesting. This is Wuhan currently. There's no masks. There's no mask. There was pictures of the crowd, and the crowd's not there in masks, like paralyzed with fear, right? And this is Wuhan now, man. They're fine. I don't know. Apparently, we were duped. Scrolling down. The WHO delegation sat in Beijing for 3 weeks and got nowhere near Wuhan, a senior U.S. official told the Financial Times. Any chance of finding a smoking gun is now gone. Dave Sharma, an Australian government MP, said the international community is right to have serious concerns about the rigor and independence of the WHO's early response to this pandemic and its seeming wish to avoid offending China. Yeah, there's some serious concerns there. Remember the vaccine that we've been talking about? I've been talking about the Chinese vaccine that was built by the Chinese company with support from the Chinese People's. Okay, so just to know, prepper for this one, the Chinese army is called the People's Liberation Army. Why do you need to know that? Why wouldn't they just use the Chinese military? I don't know, but here we are, global news. China blamed. Bleep China. It's China's fault. China blamed for Canada's multi-million-dollar coronavirus vaccine deal collapse. So we gave them lots of money, lots of support to develop this vaccine, and now, not happening because of China. Here we go. As China races to develop a COVID-19 vaccine, a multi-million-dollar collaboration between Canada and China has failed, likely because of Beijing's geopolitical concerns, say scientists with direct knowledge of the project. This week, Canada's National Research Council, NRC, announced it has abandoned its partnership with Chinese company Cansino Biologics, because China's government continues to block shipments of vaccine materials to Canada. The NRC, which is part of the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Industry, has received about $44 million since late March to upgrade its production capacity in Montreal in preparation for materials expected from Cansino. Now the NRC says it's working with 2 other COVID-19 vaccine collaborators, including the United States company VBI Vaccines, and they're talking about the facility here. I just scrolled down a bit. In May, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau endorsed the deal with Cansino, a company funded by Beijing and producing its vaccine with the People's Liberation Army. People's Liberation Army. Why wouldn't they just use Chinese military? Why wouldn't you use Chinese Army? People's Liberation Army. Okay. Cansino's COVID-19 vaccine is being tested on Chinese soldiers and has been approved for testing at the Canadian Centre for Vaccinology, CCFV, at Dalhousie University in Halifax. Cansino vaccine was supposed to arrive at the CCFV in June, but after Canada signed the Cansino deal, the government of China changed the rules on shipping vaccines, the NRC said this week in a statement. Cansino was founded in 2009 by Chinese scientist Dr. Zhefeng Zhu. Sorry if I got that wrong, who was educated at McGill University in Quebec and worked for Sanfri Pasteau before returning to China. And there's more to this story as well, but that's the Coles Notes version. I can't say that I'm disappointed, right? I was not relishing the idea of having our government's mandate a vaccine for return to schools or return to restaurants or return to opening the economy or whatever. And I have a feeling that's still the path we're on. But despite the effective treatments and despite the fact that this is a survivable infection for most people, you got to wonder what's going on. Why are we going down that road still? It's still very odd. Another Scandal for Justin Trudeau. Here is the Toronto Sun reporting another investigation coming for the Auditor General questioning the Environment Ministry's contract award practices. And they're splitting the contract. So what does splitting the contract mean? What does that mean? This tweet explains it. The same company received 8 untended contracts valued at $24,558 each, just under the $25,000 requirement for open bidding, excuse me. They split the contract on purpose to avoid the necessary approvals. How the hell can Canadians support this? Yes. So that's the Sun article. And I mean, that's incredible, right? So what they did is like the people said, well, it's going to be $2 million or whatever it is, $200,000, $400,000. And they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pay you 8 installments of $25,000, just under $25,000, so we can give you this contract. And so we don't have to open it up for open bidding. So you don't have to compete with other people for this contract. That's specifically not allowed. It specifically prohibits doing that. So yet another investigation for the Trudeau government, this inept, corrupt, crony government, right? And that's not my words. That's media's words over the last couple of weeks. Like, they are. It's very clear. It's very, very clear. They're giving money to their friends. I mean, where's the 20 million or 20,000 projects and the billions in missing money? Right? People are wondering about the infrastructure that was supposed to be built, right? 50 million projects, 20 million missing, or 50,000 projects, 20,000 missing. Ugh, horrible mismanagement. Are they competent? Is it incompetence, or are they doing this on purpose? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Here's a Rex Murphy opinion piece. I'm not going to go through it. I just like Rex Murphy, and a lot of times I agree with him. Link is in the description. It says, Trudeau's brutal attempt to use COVID to push his green agenda. Yep. Going further right than the NDP. Going further left than the NDP, going more green than the Greens, right? Like they're just trying to eat all of the left's lunch while calling anybody who disagrees with them racist, right? It's incredible. Pierre Poilievre says, even rating agencies see severe risk in Trudeau's radical experiment with permanent and massive deficits. We could be headed for another downgrade. Here's the press release from Fitch. It says DJ Fitch warns Canada again about fiscal policy. Fitch Ratings, which this year removed its AAA rating from Canada, warns of a further negative rating action for the country unless it begins to put its government debt to GDP ratio on a downward path. That does not appear in the offing for the near term, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promising this month a bold economic recovery plan for the country. Fitch said it expected spending pressures to remain pronounced while the unemployment rate is high and economic output subdued. The government faces deep fiscal economic policy challenges and risks, Fitch said, adding Canada's decentralized version of feudalism, not yet. Federalism will increase the complexity to pare back spending. Yeah, so that's a lot of complicated words to say. If you guys don't stop spending, you guys are going to be in trouble. And that's the ratings agencies, right? And I said yesterday, it's not likely that Canada won't pay back the debts, but at some point, Canada is going to get upset about losing the services the government provides to debt maintenance, debt service, right? The more we owe, the more it costs to borrow when the piper gets paid, and the more problematic that's going to be, the more we owe, right? So here is Rick McConnell. And he says, anyone who thinks we're going to have a vote of non-confidence this year hasn't been paying attention. Jagmeet Singh tallies up the price for NDP support for fall throne speech. Chris Hall. So there's a CBC interview with Jagmeet Singh, and everybody's going to be asking, what do you need to prop up the government? What do you need to make it fall? Are you going to make it fall? All of that stuff. All of those questions are pertinent, and they're going to play coy because a lot of the negotiations go on behind the scenes, right? Right now, the Conservatives are testing the waters for a confidence vote because the confidence vote is coming, right? The throne speech is coming. Trudeau's obviously in campaign mode, in my opinion, and I think he either doesn't expect the government to stand, or I don't know. He's campaigning for the MPs to have confidence in his spending plan. I'm not sure what the plan is here, but that behavior says to me he thinks he's going into an election. And I mean, he almost said it. He almost said it during the school announcement. He said, we Canadians are going to make the choice or something to that effect, and it sounded very election-y, right? Like it was almost election rhetoric, word for word. But I still think that the NDP probably are weighing on the side of supporting this government because, as I said, Trudeau is going to run to the far left and provide. I think what the NDP want is a wealth tax. And I think Trudeau could provide that in the form of the taxing your home, sale of your home. And they want the pharmacare, which Trudeau has indicated he wants to do as well. And they want some kind of daycare, right? National daycare. And I think Trudeau is going to ignore that and give 2 out of 3 and say that's not bad. I don't know if Trudeau's going to send back channels to negotiate that. I think he's just going to announce it because that's kind of been his style, right? And here's Bernier talking about a by-election, and he'd like to go up against Mark Carney in a Toronto centre seat. And Frank Vaughan was upset about this. He was saying, what kind of leaders not focusing on this and focusing on the Constitution, blah blah blah. The Toronto centre seat probably may not get won by a PPC. It's not traditionally conservative necessarily, but it would be a watched race, and it would be a good place to debate. Mark Carney would be a high-profile person to debate as well. So the strategy here seems sound to me, going after this seat if it indeed happens. But I think fundamentally, if the NDP support the government, then a by-election happens. Otherwise, we're into a general election. So things would have to happen. This is laying the groundwork for the NDP supporting the government, right? This is presuming the government doesn't fall and a by-election happens. If the government doesn't fall and a by-election happens, it's a good chance for Bernier to get the messaging out. And losing an election isn't a bad deal. Not running a candidate would be a bad deal. And if you've got the leader of the party there, why not run the leader? Like, all of that kind of makes sense to me, right? Maybe point the holes out into my argument here. It doesn't matter. Like, poke some holes in my argument. I'm fine with it. But all of that makes sense to me. So I think that's fine. I'd like a constitution, and I hear it's on the way. So hopefully we've got something soon because election's on the way. But all of that said, as far as strategy goes, from everything I know, makes sense to me. So I don't know. But I'm just some guy, right? Don't listen to me. All right, thanks everybody for watching. Check out Mark Peralez. Don't check out markperalez.com. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. And I think that's it. Yeah. Have a wonderful